It's the Vancouver Hockey Show. Andrew Wadden back once again with the healthy scratches. Nic Hauka and Jake Fraser. Boys, thanks so much last week for taking over the show. Did a fantastic job. If you guys missed it, we did not podcast it. So go to YouTube, check out our YouTube page, Vancouver Hockey, and check out the show from last week. And many thanks, of course, to Noah Strang from the Daily Hive for joining us. But boys, another week of Canucks hockey is in the books. They're back home now after a 6-game roadie, a very successful 6-game roadie, going 4-1-1 on the trip. So let's wheel it all the way back, guys. Let's go to the Motor City where they played last Sunday, which of course you guys recorded last Saturday, a 5-4 OT win against the Red Wings. And Jake, I mean, the Red Wings are not the, toughest opponent, but when you just look at the road trip as a whole for the Canucks and how they kind of had to battle to get the W in the Motor City, I mean, that's a good win for them in what can be a tough environment, especially when they're playing an afternoon game.
Yeah, I think I mentioned last week just how I had hoped they'd get the win, but it is the Canucks struggle with those 9:30 a.m. games on the East Coast. But yeah, I thought they played pretty well. I mean, obviously Jake DeBrusk getting the hat trick, that was great to see. He's been on such a tear lately. I'm sure we'll get into that a bit later on. But yeah, I think PD had himself 3 assists as well. Like, overall, I just thought it was a really successful road trip and such a great game from the team to just grind out a morning win.
Nick, the 3-2 overtime loss to the Wild. I mean, listen, if you're going to lose to a team right now, the mighty Minnesota Wild is not a bad opponent to lose to, considering that they're the top team in the NHL, surprisingly enough, at least as we record this.
Yeah, that was a really good effort. You could tell that they were absolutely gassed that whole game, but they gave it everything they had. They held in there the whole time. They probably should have won that game too in overtime. There was the insane save on Brandstrom on the cross crease pass where he gets his pad on it, and then Besser on a 2-0 decides to take matters into his own hands and not just pass off to Pius Suter, try to go for the win, hits the post, they go down and score. Lankinen made some incredible saves in overtime prior to that. Wow, has that guy been unbelievable. Me and Jake were talking about this yesterday, actually, and I was saying, Jake was saying, I don't know if he can kind of be a full-time goalie going forward for a different team. I think he might be able to. Goalies take forever to develop. They always kind of hit their stride at an older age. He's 29 now. I think, is he maybe a Tim Thomas story that at a later... I don't know. Is he a Tim Thomas story where at a later age he just goes on this huge hot streak for 5 or 6 years? I could see it the way he's playing. He's been exceptional all year.
Don't forget in the Minnesota game too, Kaprizov hauling down Garland there.
Yes,
True.
I was going to mention that as well.
True.
Just a terrible non-call. I mean, you get those calls when you're leading the league in points though, right? But yeah, that was a terrible non-call. But at the same time too, the Canucks get a point out of it. But you're absolutely right, though, about Lankinen. I mean, the guy makes Team Finland for the Four Nations face-off. And, Jake, you did a great video on that that came out in our TikTok just from the Healthy Scratches show from last week, talking about how Kevin Lankinen will likely make that team. And he did. But, guys, I mean, Demko's back. And we're going to get to that. But he backed up. Like, he could have played against Columbus. But instead, the team decides to go with Kevin Lankinen. Now, I'm sure that had something to do with Demko and, maybe his comfort level and when he, wants to start. And he should be afforded that. I mean, he is, top 3 goalie, at least last year in the NHL. But, man, what a story Kevin Lankinen is this year. $875,000. I'll tell you what, Jake, that guy's going to get a raise next year. And there's going to be some teams lining up for his services.
Yeah, I would expect, I think if the Canucks can get on top of it, maybe they can get him around the $2 million mark, 2.5, give him that kind of extension. But if he hits free agency, there's going to be a team out there that's willing to pay him $4 million for sure. Like, he has been unbelievable.
Yeah. Nick, he's hitting free agency though, right, Nick? Like
he has to, right?
Yeah.
After the way he's played. He's been so valuable to us, though. I think one thing going under the radar, I don't think we have the record we do without him right now, especially with Love struggling. He's been playing over replacement level 1000%. He's been unreal. And I think because he's playing so well, he's allowed Demko maybe to relax a little bit. I know obviously he wants to get back on the ice. Any competitor does, but he's been able to take his time. And I think he can continue to do that and pace himself rather than us just thrusting him in to play like 40 games out of the next however many, right? Like we can pace him. He can maybe play like only 20, 25, and we could be okay with that. And then he can be good going into the playoffs and nice and healthy. So he has been so valuable to us.
Yeah, we asked the people on our social media, just on our Instagram. We always do these little polls on our stories, usually around whatever we post, and asked the people after Demko had spoken to the media before he backed up against Columbus, just, hey, how many games do you think he should play? There was 58 left at the time, 57 now after last night's game. Majority of the people were saying somewhere around 20 to 30 games, which is amazing, really, when you think about it. Like the fact that they could afford to give a Vezina caliber goaltender, some time to really ease his way back in after having, being out for so long. I mean, what a wealth of riches for the Vancouver Canucks in goal. And I mean, people are going, Artie who? Like what? Archer Seeloffs isn't even in the conversation anymore. This guy was the toast of the town last year, especially in the postseason. So again, like I said, real good to have depth like that. And hey, let's keep in mind too, like for as good as Kevin Lankinen has been, Thatcher Demko is still Thatcher Demko, right? So if you got Lankinen stealing games for this Canucks, imagine what Demko could do if he can get himself up to full health. Jake DeBrusk, guys, we talked about him a lot on this show throughout the year, and at one point I wondered if he was going to be known as Jake DeBust. Well, I'm eating crow now on that one. 10 points, Nick, on the road trip. 8 of those goals, up to 12 goals on the season now, leading the team. What a breakout for DeBrusk. And what I love about it is he's getting to the greasy areas of the ice. Yeah. That's where he's scoring the goals.
Yeah, I really think as a team, we needed more of that. I think that's something we were lacking a little bit last year, especially in the playoffs. And he definitely brings that, right? Just doing the little things right on the power play, standing in front of the net, getting his stick on the puck. He had another one last night, right? On that weird fluky shot where Quinn breaks his stick and he's in the right place in front of the net, tips one in. Goals like that are so valuable, especially when play tightens up. In tighter games and in the playoffs when there's not a lot of space. You got to score ugly goals, and he's capable of doing that, and it's paying off already.
Yeah, I just really love the energy he brings to the team too. Like when he scored last night, for example, like you can see the boys just love rallying around him, celebrating with him. I think he brings a different dynamic that we don't have a ton of on the team right now, just the fun and like loving to score goals like that. Like obviously when Quinn Hughes scores, everybody talks about how he's stone-faced, no smile, but DeBrusk is the complete opposite of that. And I think every team needs a little bit of that balance. And I think he does a really good job of bringing that to the team.
He loves that high knee, right? We'll bring the high knee up and then give it one of those. Like he absolutely loves that. Hey, listen, his dad didn't score a hell of a lot of goals in the league, but he certainly does. But his dad did other things out on the ice that definitely intimidated others, if you will. Quinn Hughes is definitely intimidating others on the ice right now. I mean, 10 points on the road trip himself. That's ho-hum when it comes to 43. But some significant milestones were achieved as well, though. He sets the club record for assists by a defenseman. Guys, he did it in 537 less games. Like, it's unbelievable the things that Quinn Hughes is doing. But he's 46 points away from breaking Edler's record for points by a defenseman, the club record for points by a defenseman. I mean, guys, like he's going to do it this year, right, Nick? Like with 50-something games left, 46 points. I mean, that's a walk in the park for Quinn Hughes.
The way he's playing, absolutely. I'd be shocked if he didn't, to be honest with you. I think already he hasn't had that much longevity with us. I think he's the most talented defenseman in Canucks history by far. And I think
not even a question.
Yeah. But I think you could make the argument already. He's the best defenseman in our history.
Oh yeah.
At this point already. He's unbelievable. Like every night he's so consistent. He is always the best player on the back end for us. And on the ice for that matter. And I think you can make the argument most nights he's the best player on the ice between both teams.
Oh, 100%. Jake.
Yeah.
He's the best Canuck ever in history, in my opinion. Like, Pavel Bure, exciting. Absolutely. One of the most exciting players to ever play the game. Obviously, there's the lure of Trevor Linden, and of course, there's the Sedins, right? But when Quinn Hughes' career is all said and done, he's going to be the greatest Canuck of all time. This isn't a hot take. I feel like this isn't a hot take. I feel like this is almost factual right now.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I was thinking earlier when we were talking about this, this is the last Canuck that's ever going to wear number 43. Like, that number's raised to the rafters 100%. I mean, he's just so electric what he does out there. I've never seen any defenseman do what he can do wearing a Canucks jersey. So any player for that matter. So 100% he's going down as the greatest Canuck.
I think we're sleeping on the Sedins a little bit still. I think he's right behind them right now. Couple of playoff runs, he continues this play for 3 to 5 years, then yes, very likely. But I think we're forgetting how dominant the Sedins were for years.
Well, I'm not forgetting it. I'm not forgetting it. Trust me. I mean, I'm old enough. I watched their whole entire career. I remember when they came up and people were questioning whether they were going to be anything in this league, which of course didn't happen with Quinn Hughes. But I'll tell you what, I mean, there's a long way to go, but I mean, the way he's trending, I mean, it's looking like he's going to be the greatest of all time in terms of Canucks. I see what you're saying though when it comes to the Sedins. I'm trying to pull up points per game right now. I want to see. Here it is. Yeah, points per game, all time for the Canucks. And Quinn Hughes is above both of the Sedins right now with 0.93 PP points per game, that is.
They were late bloomers, though. They were very late bloomers. They were late bloomers. They took like 4 to 5 years to actually get going. Hughes was kind of right from the bat, yeah.
Yep, as I mentioned. But Quinn Hughes right out the gate. I'm not taking away from the Sedins. The Sedins were incredible. I mean, one of the greatest stories in NHL history, especially the fact that they were twins, did it all at the same franchise. And just an incredible story. So, yeah, well, we can keep this debate going, but I feel pretty confident in my take on Hughes. You talk about 43 going to the rafters. At one point, I think a lot of people thought 40 would be in the rafters. And, you know, Petey's had his ups and downs this year. And, you know, let's not negate the fact that that could happen at some point in the future. But let's just look at the now right now. And the now has been pretty good for Elias Pettersson. He had 10 points on the trip as well. He's not putting the puck in the net, but he's definitely racking up the assists. Up to 24 points now, Jake, in 25 games. So point per game, Petey, that's exactly where we expect him to be. Maybe a little bit below what you expect him to be this year, but it's good to see him, you know, picking up the slack, if you will.
Yeah, he's a 2-point game away from being at a point per game. So I've really liked what we've seen. He obviously got robbed last night in the Columbus game. I thought he should have buried there, but sometimes they just don't go your way. I still think he's struggling to score a little bit. Like, I feel like we're not seeing him. Well, we haven't seen him bury in a few games at least, but he's been doing a really good job creating for other guys, creating for Jake DeBrusk, for example. Creating for Brock Besser too. I think those three have looked really good together. But yeah, I think Petey's definitely taken big steps since we've been missing JT Miller.
Yeah, he's kind of changed the way that he's played a little bit from years past. Like when I'm watching him now, like he really is taking that mentality of being the setup man and the playmaker on that line, and he's really embracing it, and he's looking really good doing it, and that's a very valuable role. I think maybe we need to flip our perspective of what we expect from him. Despite him not scoring, he still has been one of our best players, which is what we're looking for, and I think he's kind of turned around his play. So I'm happy with the way he's playing personally. I think it's a little bit different than what we want. We kind of saw him as that goal scorer with the wicked shot in his first couple of years in the league. But if he continues to play at this level for the rest of the year, I'd be more than happy with how he's playing.
Well, yeah, and you see his line mate, Jake DeBrusk, racking up the goals as well. I mean, you know, look at the numbers, right? 8 and 2 and 10 for Jake and 1 and 9 and 10 for Petey. So you see who the setup man and the trigger man is in that combination. We mentioned this CBJ game. It's the kicking off a 6-game homestand for the Canucks as they came home off the road. They're a little sluggish to start the game, down 2 buzz, but I thought they showed some resilience, Nick, with that win, being able to come back. And they got a little help from Elvis, who was in the building on that second goal.
Yeah, they definitely did. I have a theory, all right? I think the boys don't like to score at home because our goal song sucks. That's what I think. Like, what the hell is our goal song? Like a good
First of all, you're showing your age. You're definitely showing your age. Like
no no
you're it's an 80s classic. Come
okay,
on.
sure. No, I'm not saying it's a bad song. I'm saying it's a horrific goal song. A good goal song needs to be really in your face and annoying, or super, super catchy and loud. It's kind of like a vanilla, like kind of swaying, like catchy, good song nonetheless, but it's not a goal song. I want to hear something obnoxious that pisses off the other team or rallies the boys. That's horseshit. I don't want to hear that as a goal song. Imagine Kiefer Sherwood scores and Love Sosa by Chief Keef blast from the speakers. The crowd's electric. They're into it. You have a bunch of Vancouver, a bunch of like rich Vancouver folks in the stands singing Chief Keef. It'd be hilarious. I would love that if they did custom goal songs or just play something obnoxious. Like, what about Axel F by Crazy Frog playing after every goal? Can you imagine that? Teams would hate to play in the building. And I don't know. We need a better goal song. That's
Well,
my.
it's like that World Juniors a few years ago where they
Oh, the
did
Hey Baby.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god. When I hear that song now, I just want to like rip my ears off. Like
Exactly. Well, it's like Chelsea Dagger in Chicago, right? It's a great song, but it becomes so annoying because I just think of like from 2008 to 2011, just hearing it over and over again. And I don't know, there's something to it.
do you guys remember when the Canucks changed the DJ? My good buddy Jay Swing used to be the DJ for the Canucks. He should still be the DJ. He's such a big fan of the Canucks. He was robbed of that, and they replaced him with some girl who, let's just say, she wasn't all that great at DJing, and nor did she know the history when it came to the Vancouver Canucks. And she played Chelsea Dagger between whistles once in a game, Jake. I mean, that's sacrilegious when it comes to the Canucks.
Oh,
No.
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's awful.
I do agree with you, though. The thing is, though, when it first came out, I was kind of like the same way you are, Nick, but it is catchy, though. That's the thing. People, they love it. Now, you hit on something, though, that I agree with. Personalized goal songs, like walk-up music in baseball.
Yeah.
Why not? Right? I'd be so down with that.
There are teams doing it too. I think Buffalo might be doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're doing something. At least they're doing something right in Buffalo. What is it? They 13 years now without making the playoffs. No, I'm all for that. I think they should do personalized goal songs. I always thought that maybe they should do like, some like massive drop like EDM song, like where as soon as it hits the net, it's like 16 or 8 bars, and then boom, big drop. But I don't know.
What about some dubstep, some like Skrillex from 2010?
Oh, some drum and bass. Let's get some like Chasing Status or something like that on there. That's right in my wheelhouse right there. That's the old DJ in me showing there. But a good win though, nonetheless, guys, to kick off the homestand there. Like I mentioned, 6 games. But how about Jake Pia Suter right now? Up to 11 goals on the season. 15 is his career high. He's usually a guy that caps out around 14. I believe he's done it like 3 different times in his career. But on pace now for 37 goals, 54 points. And, oh, look at that. It's a career year for Suter.
Yeah,
contract year, my bad.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's got to slow down, especially when we get the full forward group back and healthy. But I think he's carved out that left wing role in the top 6 with JT Miller when JT Miller comes back. So I think 30 is a little much for him. I don't expect him to get there, but I could see him maybe getting 25, and then he's looking like maybe a $3 to $4 million player next year. He's definitely played himself into quite a big pay raise. So it's been great to see. A little bit unfortunate too, because we're the team that has to suffer from that pay raise. But you gotta love that from him overall. And I mean, being a top 6 winger, we really need those guys. And when you're trying to win a Stanley Cup, you need guys playing above their contract. And he's one of those guys right now that's playing well above his contract. So it's been really great to see from him, and hopefully he can hit 30. But I'm predicting around 25 goals.
Yeah, Canucks valuable depth piece in his contract year. Of course, he's going to have a career
Yeah,
year.
right.
Of course.
Hey, if you're gonna have a career year, you might as well do it when the when the paychecks are around the corner. I mean, listen, it's all good for the Canucks right now, and if Pia Suter ends up, getting to a point where he will cost more, then you just walk away from it. But in the time and right now, I think the Canuck fans are loving what P.S. Suter is doing. They're also loving the fact that Thatcher Demko is back. Now, we flirted with it at the top of the show here, but did you guys find it strange? I'll start with you, Jake. Did you find it strange that Demko backed up in his first game? I mean, he could have played. And it is a little bit odd because we are recording on Saturday. There's a game tomorrow, but it's an afternoon game. Like you're gonna start with a weird afternoon game. Like it just seemed a little bit odd to me.
I 100%. I mean, especially since it's the Columbus Blue Jackets, I thought you'd kind of give them that easy layup first start, but I don't think you can give them the 1 p.m. against Tampa Bay. That's kind of a shitty situation for Demko to be put in for his first start of the year. Yeah, I don't understand it. Maybe because Lankinen's just had the hot hand, you just keep rolling with him and give, like Nick mentioned earlier in the show, give Demko that time to really rest, and there's no rush to get him back in the net. But yeah, I just felt like Columbus, 7 p.m., first game of a homestand. They had a 3-day break leading up to that game. I thought that was the right situation to give him that first start. Obviously, if he's backing up Kevin Lankinen, he's ready to play. Like they're not going to have him sit on the bench, and if Lankinen gets hurt, we got to throw the e-bug in because Demko's not actually ready to go. But yeah, I thought Columbus was the right start for him. I think now you kind of look forward to the game after Tampa Bay, which I think that's on Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Tuesday against St. Louis. I think that might be the right game to get him in. But yeah, overall, I think it's just probably Lankinen's been so good. Why take him out of the net?
Yeah, do you think that maybe they're doing it just to get him like back and acquainted like with like a game day routine maybe? I know for goalies it's like a big mental game, and Andrew, you would know this obviously, right, about your preparation on game day being a former goalie yourself. And I don't know, from talking to like goalies that I know, like it's really big. Like they go through a routine and they have to kind of get into like a certain headspace. Do you think maybe they're just like giving him a game or two just to get back into that and be ready for the game rather than just jumping back into it? What do you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of odd that he would back up. I mean, and when you do look at that schedule, like I agree with Jake. An afternoon game against Tampa, just an odd time. Your preparation's all messed up. So don't see him playing that game. Does he back up that game? What happens if they get shelled by the Lightning early on? And is Demko going to come in relief? Like, is that the best situation for him to do? Come in essentially cold? I don't know if that's I wouldn't have him backing up is my point. Like if he wasn't going to play, then I wouldn't have him as the backup. I would have prepared him for Tuesday to play against the Blues and sort of ease him in against a team that's, the Blues are a fringe sort of playoff team, right? But then you look at the rest of that week after that, you got Florida, Boston, Colorado. Like, I mean, those are three, tough opponents, right? So, maybe the St. Louis game is the one for him. I just don't see the like, I see there could be too much risk in having him back up and potentially come in because Tampa Bay's been throttling teams lately as well. So I do believe there is a bit of risk. The one thing that I wonder though, Nick, is, is there going to be a re-aggravation here? And I know you're not a doctor, and nor are any of us here, but man, it just seems like, with how they handled Demko in terms of like, it just felt like it was like day to day to day to day to day to day. Like it was just like, when is this going to happen? He's been on the ice, but yet still not ready. And then you hear him talking about his preparation and how, he was talking to Tocchet and talking to Marco and trying to get himself available. I just wonder though if there is just, I wonder if they're worried, and because of the nature of the injury, I mean, I think it's rightfully so.
Yeah, like from what I've read, again, I'm not a doctor, but from what I've read, like it's kind of an unprecedented, really strange injury, right? It's not something that they have to deal with, and the nihilist in me kind of sees how the Canucks have handled injuries in the past with like Cody Hodgson and things like that, and yeah, like I am worried because it usually doesn't go well for this organization when there's a weird injury like this. So yeah, like it really worries me, and it would be so unfortunate if he like cannot get back to full health and can't regain his form because of this injury, because he's been such an amazing goalie ever since he was in junior. I remember watching him at the World Juniors, cheering for Canada and seeing him play unbelievable against us. We still beat them, but like he was incredible. And I just remember being like, wow, like we have such a good player here, and he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. And it's just so unfortunate because I think he could have such a great career, and he could definitely be one of the best goalies in Canucks history, if not the best goalie in Canucks history, if everything goes his way. But it hasn't really reached that point right now.
Yeah, there could be Corey Schneider 2.0 though as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about with Schneider with his hip problems, and he just never was able to get over that. I don't want to put that on Thatcher Demko, nor do I want to put that out in the universe as well. I love the fact that you referenced though an injury from 15 years ago. I think the organization has turned over a little bit there, Nick.
Hey, that was our peak. What do you mean? That was the best it's been
since the Cody Hodgson days. Hronek is injured, as we know. He's looking like he's going to be out. Approximately, the team said about 8 weeks. Looks like a shoulder, guys. I think that's what I took from that. Just the way that he went into the boards like that. But an interesting week though, because when you see a guy like Hronek go down, obviously top 4, a defenseman for the Canucks, a big piece of the blue line for the Canucks. But then you see names like Jacob Trouba, who clearly just got traded to the Anaheim Ducks. There was all those rumors coming out of New York that he was on the block and then eventually gets moved. David Jurasek, the young kid out of Columbus, who ended up getting traded as well. Jake, apparently the Canucks were in on both of them. And as we know, like between the Rutherford regime, like they're always sniffing around. They're always doing their due diligence. Trouba clearly wasn't going to work for the Canucks, especially since the Rangers didn't have to retain any of his salary. So let's throw him out the window, because it's just, I mean, listen, the Canucks were not going to be able to take on the full freight of that unless they move somebody of significance, which they clearly weren't going to do. But David Jurasek, Jake, I wonder if they maybe should have, really rattled the bushes, or, shook the bushes a little bit more to try to land him. Now, there obviously is some risk because he really hasn't, become what a lot of people thought he was going to be. But at 6'4" and a right shot, and looking at the price that he went for, like, feels like the Canucks probably should have been in on that one.
Yeah, I remember his draft year. I really liked him coming into the draft. I thought he was a top 5 player in that draft class. He definitely hasn't developed. I don't think Columbus really gave him the right opportunity to develop. They kept signing like a bunch of right shot D-men like Damon Severson in free agency, just kind of leaving him at the bottom of the depth chart, not really giving him that opportunity. But I mean, Minnesota gave up quite a bit for him. I think they gave up a first, second, third, and a prospect. So it was a pretty big ask, especially for a guy, like you said, that hasn't really become what people expected to him, hasn't really played much in the NHL. And when you need kind of that immediate fix, that immediate Hronek replacement, I didn't think he was necessarily the right guy for that. I think if Hronek isn't hurt, maybe you go look at that Juracek deal, because then 2-3 years from now, your right side is Hronek, Willander, and Juracek, hopefully. I mean, that could be a pretty unbelievable right side. But I just think with the timing of the Hronek injury and what Minnesota had to give up, I think it kind of handcuffed the Canucks a little bit to not be able to pursue David Juracek.
I'm glad they didn't make that deal. I really like Juracek coming out of junior too. He can't skate. Like, he's a horrendous backward skater, and he's a defenseman. It's really weird. Like, I don't like. He's pretty when he has the puck, and he moves the puck up ice. He's pretty smooth, and he's a good puck mover, and he like has a good offensive mind for a defenseman. But he's not good defensively, and he can't skate, which is a huge issue, especially at his size of 6'4", he has a lot of lateral agility issues, which is huge for playing defense. I think that if we got him, he's just a younger version of a defenseman, kind of like almost like Desharnais, almost like, again, better, but he has the same kind of issues, and we already have that style of defenseman. That's not the kind of guy I think that this defensive core needs. We have the big lugs that can clear out the front of the net. We need some more puck movers.
Do you think that's his ceiling then? Is
no,
like a big Hronek? Like you think he's
no.
No?
I think he has a bigger ceiling because we've seen players not be able to skate at all and figure it out. He just hasn't got to that point yet. I don't know if you guys remember, Steven Stamkos could not skate in junior. He was a terrible skater. I remember watching him being like, wow, I myself was a very choppy skater. And I remember watching him at the World Juniors going, holy shit, this guy's a choppier stride than I do. And then one year after his rookie year, in his sophomore season, all of a sudden he could skate. He was a smooth skater because he put the work in, and he was just such a natural, unbelievable athlete, right? But the fact that Juracek hasn't done that yet is quite concerning to me.
Correct me if I'm wrong too. Wasn't Bo Horvat was a pretty shitty skater as well, and he put a lot of work into that too. So I'm just looking at the straight up counting stats with Juracek. I got him pulled up here, and the numbers in the AHL are good. Like he produces in the AHL. Now that's not a direct line to the NHL in terms of the way that you're going to become in the higher level that is the NHL. But I don't know about that trade. Like, I mean, they gave up Damon Hunt, who I believe is was a bit of a prospect for the Wild. Yeah, a third rounder in 2020. So, one of those guys that is still trying to find his footing. But you're right about the draft picks, though, Jake. It went the first rounder was conditional, but then there was a third and 26, a fourth and 26, and a second rounder in 27. Now the Canucks do have that draft capital, but at some point, and I think we talked about this on a pod earlier. Like, you got to be careful stripping away, especially when you're, not quite there yet. You know what I mean with the Canucks? Like, they're definitely a playoff team. Are they a contender? Like, should they be like the Pittsburgh Penguins when Rutherford was, stripping away first rounders because they were in their window? Yeah, I don't know if that's the right move for the Canucks. But at 21 years old, it's almost like you're getting, a draft pick almost, or at least, a prospect that's, a couple of years into development. I wonder if that's one of the ones that they might regret moving forward. But that said, they still got to do something in terms of, fill in the gap that is Hronek. And some interesting names are starting to pop up, guys. Like, Cole McWard perhaps might get a shot at the NHL level. And I know we've seen him when they first signed him out of college, but he's been marinating down in Abbotsford. Also, Elias Pettersson, excuse me, DPD, if you will. Like, Jake, there's a couple of intriguing guys that, let's see what they can do right now, because if they can solve this problem in-house, boy, that you're cooking with gas at that point.
Yeah, I'd love to see DPD get an opportunity. I know he's called up, what was that, a month ago, but never saw a game. But yeah, from everything that I'm hearing out of Abbotsford is that he's been the best defenseman on the Abbotsford Canucks this season. So why not give him a shot? They're giving all these forwards opportunities. Lekkerimäki, Max Sassen's doing well. Lekkerimäki was solid as well, but why not give the young defenseman an opportunity? And talking about the draft capital, like, you look at DPD, you look at Sawyer Minnow, these guys that they're drafting in the late rounds, I feel like the Canucks could hold on to those draft picks instead of dealing them for a guy like Juracek. And they've shown that they're drafting pretty well, especially in, I think both DPD and Minnow were third round picks. Minnow's looking like he might make the World Junior roster for Team Canada this year. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity for this regime to solve a lot of our holes in-house.
Yeah, I like that. I really like that this regime is like so practical with their approach. Like, and they do all the things, they do everything right. They draft well, they don't sign stupid contracts. It's a good mix, I think, because before the Gillis regime, great at signing contracts, getting people to take less, could not draft to save their life. One of those holy shit, were they bad at drafting? Like, I don't understand how they were that bad. Like, they didn't even produce it like more than 2 NHL players in like 4 drafts. It's insane. And then you go to the Benning era, and we don't need to talk about that. Bad in all aspects. But I really like this regime, how they approach things, and I think that's kind of showing with the Juracek thing. They probably looked at it and went, you know what? I'm not willing to pay that price. It's not worth it. We're not going to do it. I don't need to. There's some guys in the AHL that we can try out until the right deal comes along, and I think that's the right approach, and I think that's why we've been able to turn around this organization the last couple of years.
Jimbo gets shit on a lot, but let's keep in mind, he did draft Quinn Hughes. He did draft Elias Pettersson, but he also drafted Jake Virtanen and Oli Olevi. So it's a wash.
50%.
Really at that point. Jimbo, where are you, buddy?
Lastly, for Nations Face-Off, before we get into the Canucks, guys, so many people are dumping on this tournament. I don't understand why. I'm excited about it. It's not best on best. I get it. There's no Russia. There's no Germany. I mean, Switzerland's a pain in the ass to play against on the international stage. So it is not best on best. But for the 4 countries that are there, Jake, like, I'm excited about it. And I think most people that are ragging on it right now are going to get fully on board once it kicks off.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people online complaining about certain players that are playing in it. Like, oh, this is just another opportunity for our guys to get hurt in games that don't matter. I'm like, come on, like, this is the first opportunity that we get to see Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, and Sidney Crosby all on the same team. Like, that is going to be unbelievable. That is something I've looked forward to for the last 10 years since McDavid was a 17-year-old looking like the next Sidney Crosby. Like, this is such an exciting tournament for me, and I'm super pumped about it. I can't understand why people aren't getting excited about it.
That's insane to me. Like, we've been robbed of this for so long. Like, it's been since what, 2016, since we had NHL players playing an international tournament that wasn't the World Championship that no one really cares about, right? Yeah, like as Jacob said, I've wanted that since McDavid kind of came onto the scene. Also, 1 point, no Russians in this tournament. Is this Don Cherry's dream come true?
Well, there's Swedes and Finns too. Like, you're
right.
We used to call the Sedins the sisters, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, he has hate for more than just Russia as well. But
did anyone from Quebec make Team Canada?
Yeah, there you go. Well, played for Rimouski. I guess that's kind of close to Quebec. Bouchard didn't make it, so. No, again, you guys are absolutely right though too. Like, there is that too. Like, if PD gets hurt, then we're probably changing our tone, or at least you guys are as Canuck fans. But just to have the opportunity, not only that, even just to see Crosby, McKinnon, and Marchand play on a line, like the Nova Scotia connection line. Like, I just want to see that, right? Like, I don't know. I'm excited about it. I do see that, because there is going to be someone get hurt. There's going to be, and everyone that's playing in this tournament is a significant player to their club team, right? So there will be an injury. Some team's going to be pissed off, yada, yada, but I'm really excited to see it. And I'll take this all day, every day over a friggin' all-star week. That is just, it's a sham. I can't stand. I loved Kucherov in the all-star game last year, just being like, fuck this. This is so stupid. Like, I just want to go and crush a bunch of Bud Lights. The Canucks have 5 guys that are going to be representing for their country. Rick Tocchet is one of them. We already knew that, though. Tocchet and Hughes were a part of the early announcements in terms of the players that were and coaching staff that were introduced. But JT Miller on Team USA, PD on Sweden, and then Kevin Lankinen on Finland, which we mentioned earlier. No Besser or Demko on Team USA. Now, when they first mentioned or first introduced the 4 Nations face-off and talked about the players that were the first 6 for each team, I did a video on our TikTok wondering, would Brock Besser be the odd man out when it came to Canucks that were going to be potentially representing their country? And it turned out he was. I'm surprised by that, though, guys. When you look at the U.S. roster, like, I feel like Besser was a bit of a snub. Demko, clearly we know why he didn't make the team. They've got great depth when it comes to goaltending in Team USA, but just being injured for so long, and really it's probably not the right thing for him to go and represent his country. I'm sure he would want to do it, but guys, and I'll start with you, Nick, like, I feel like Besser got snubbed. I mean, Brock Nelson over Brock Besser? I mean, I can see Vinny Trocheck,
Yeah.
but Brock Nelson's the one that sort of stands out to me. Now, I know it's the defensive side of the game, the 200-foot game that he plays, but like Brock Besser's a pretty good defensive player as well.
Yeah, he is. I think with that roster makeup, when I was looking at it, other than Nelson, right, and Trocheck a little bit, it seems like they're skill players. They want them to be able to skate. Like, it's a very skillful, fast team. And the one detriment of Brock's game is he's not a great skater. He never has been, right? He can put the puck in the net. His passing has improved drastically, and he can play a 200-foot game now. But I don't think he can skate to the ability that team wants their skill players to be able to.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I mean, I think he can probably take Kreider, Trocheck, and Brock Nelson off the team and put Brock Besser, Tage Thompson, and Cole Caulfield. Like, there were quite a few snubs from that forward group, especially. But yeah, like you said, like, I understand the off or the defensive side of the game. Like, you want those guys that can play 200-foot games. Brock Nelson obviously can play down the middle and can play on the wing. So it's good to have the center depth, especially in such a short tournament, smaller rosters too. They only got 13 forwards, I think it is. But yeah, I would have liked to see Besser on the team. I wonder too if his concussion kind of hurt him a little bit. If missing that time, they were just like, I don't want to risk it.
I think the other thing too with Brock is that Nelson, Kreider, those guys, they bring a physicality to the game that Brock doesn't bring either. So
Sure.
I think that could also be the offsetting thing. And I think it's really unfortunate because I love Brock and I'd love to see him on that roster. But I think that might be their mindset.
Yeah, to me, it's Trocheck. To me, he's a lock, and some people might go, "What, a lock? Like Vinny Trocheck?" It's just in terms of you need those guys that can bring a bit of grit, and Vinny Trocheck can definitely do that, and he can supply offense. And I wonder if him and sort of Brock Nelson are sort of the same player, but at the same time too, like it isn't necessarily an all-star team. Like it is, but you do want to have some sort of balance, right? And JT Miller does bring some balance, I feel like, for this team as well. Like he brings that grit. Guys, I'm sitting there looking at the lineup and I'm just wondering who would work best with JT Miller. How about this for a line? I would love to see this. Miller flanked by Brady Tkachuk and Kyle Connor, or perhaps a Jake Gensel. Like have a sniper on the wing with two like just muck it up, gritty guys like Miller and Tkachuk together. I think that would be a pretty dynamic line. Just regardless of who you put on the other wing, whether it's Boldy or Connor or Gensel, just somebody that could really snipe with Miller and Tkachuk. What do you guys think?
I think
I wanna
having Connor
see-
there would be great. What do you think,
Yeah.
Jake?
I want to see Miller play with both Kachucks. Like, I think that would be the meanest, toughest line to play against in the tournament. Like that would be a hard forechecking line. All three guys can score. All three guys can play make. I know I kind of went off on Brady Tkachuk a few episodes ago, but he's a great player. We've seen what Matthew can do. Matthew was a massive part in getting Florida over the hump. So adding JT Miller to the two brothers there, I think that would be a really mean line to play against. That any D pairing going back into the corners, retrieving pucks, would have a little bit of fear in them, knowing that JT Miller and the two Kachucks are coming down forechecking on him.
That's a throwback line. That's like prime 2010s hockey, like LA Kings style. We're gonna beat the shit out of you in the corners, but we can also score. Like, remember Dustin Brown? That Dustin Brown line was very much like that. Like, they're going to dump the puck in. They're going to hammer you in the corner. Then they're going to cycle down low, and they can score gritty goals. They can score in the slot. Like, that would be a fun line to watch, as much as I don't want America to win, obviously.
Okay. But I feel like the U.S. and Canada are the two stronger teams in this tournament. And don't get me wrong, like if Finland or Sweden, maybe not so much Finland, but if Sweden was able to, win the tournament, it wouldn't surprise me. But I feel like Canada and the U.S. have the strongest rosters. So I'll start with you, Jake. Putting these rosters on top of one another, Who's got the better roster, the USA or Canada?
I think the goaltending just kills Canada's roster. USA's got the best roster in the tournament. Obviously, Canada has the Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar. Like, those are 3 top 5 players in the league, top 4. Some would even say top 3. So Canada has the high-end talent that the USA just can't quite match. Although obviously Quinn Hughes, Austin Matthews, like they have that too, but not to the same extent that Canada does, I think. But you look at the forward depth on the American team, you look at the D pairings that the American team has, and then the goaltending just absolutely obliterates Canada's goaltending. Jeremy Swayman being their number 3, he'd be the clear-cut number 1. Please don't take him out of the net for any of the games on Team Canada.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to say. I think they do on paper have the better roster. And that's the first time we can say that forever, right? I think we kind of went through, I know the 2006 Olympics was a disaster for Canada, obviously, in Italy. But since then, it's kind of been like Canada's roster is by far the best, and we have great defensemen. Which we do still. Our forward group is unbelievable, and our goalies we have 2 good ones. We always have 2 good ones. We don't have a lot of depth after that, but we've always had 2 solid ones, and I think that's kind of gone now. I don't know, like, who do you trust in goal for Canada? Maybe Aiden Hill. I think it's going to be who gets hot, right? Like,
oh yeah,
Aiden Hill.
Guys, the 6 goaltenders, there are 2 of them that have got Stanley Cup rings. 2 of them that have led their team to a Stanley Cup. This is, the pressure games, Aiden Hill and Jordan Binnington have won in pressure games. The Americans have. I think too many people are shitting on Canada right now.
Though Binnington hasn't been great though. He's been fine since that cup. That cup run, he was awesome. He was unbelievable. Since then, he's been okay. Like, hey, do you remember when the Canucks ripped him apart in the bubble in big games? He didn't play very well during that time.
Oh, don't give me the bubble. Don't ever reference the bubble on this. It wasn't real. It was not real. Like, I don't think it actually happened. I think we all just sort of dreamed it because it wasn't real. And the Blues didn't give a shit in the bubble. They just had come off their Stanley Cup and were like, yeah, no, we don't care. We got ours. So don't give me the ball. I'm sorry.
That's a loser mentality if that was actually a mentality.
Guys, I do have to point out, though, McKinnon, Crosby, McDavid.
Yep.
And you can throw Cale Makar in there. Those are the 4 best players in this tournament. Who do they all play for? So, as much as people want to crown Team USA's roster and say it is better than Canada's, I argue that that is not the case. We can bring this back up come February when the games are for real. All right. Great stuff, guys. Big week ahead for the Canucks. Obviously, they're going to be sleeping in their own beds for a little while here as the 5 more games left on this homestand. And it's going to be a fun week, as we mentioned earlier. Like, look at the teams that are coming through town. So we'll see if the Canucks can continue to play, well, I won't want to say this hot streak, but they're keeping themselves in the mix right now and able to, keep their head above water when it comes to the playoff bar. But for the Healthy Scratches, Jake and Nick, I'm Andrew Wadden. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back again next week.